let me tell you a secret. Adults are way better at learning the piano than kids. I know, this probably goes against everything you've ever been told. Children's brains are more moldable. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I call BS. Let me talk you through what the average lesson with a second grader looks like. Please don't put your feet on the piano, stop chasing my cats around, and consistently reminding them how to tell their right hand from their left hand. Guess who doesn't have any of these problems? Adults. Between life experience, knowing how to read, musical knowledge gained through years of listening to music, or participating in band or choir at school, and usually being pretty dynamite at counting to 5 or even beyond, it is clear which group has the advantage. But there is one mistake that, in my experience, adults are way more likely to make. This mistake slows down their progress, causes frustration, and wastes a ton of practice time. And when my adult students get really focused on fixing this one issue, their progress skyrockets. Hi, I'm Megan, and I'm a piano teacher, and on my channel I share tips, tricks, and tutorials every single week. If you're a returning viewer, you also might be able to tell I'm getting over a pretty nasty case of laryngitis at the moment, which has been pretty inconvenient in most areas of my life, but has been absolutely excellent for my Abby Carmichael impression.
You have a bad track record with lawyers who don't tell you what you want to hear.
Law and Order fans will get it. So let's dive right in. The number one mistake that adult students are way more likely to make than kids is not practicing slowly. Imagine I just put this piece of music down in front of you, or this one, or how about this one? What happened in your brain when you saw the title? The music started playing in your head, right? And when you put your hands on the keys to start playing, your subconscious goal is going to be to take this piece and play it at the exact tempo or speed that you're hearing in your head. Here's what happens in a kid's head when I show them this piece. Nothing. There's a decent chance they've never even heard these songs before, if they can even read the title. And even if they have, for most children, the musical impulse to recreate the exact tempo they're familiar with isn't very strong yet. So for adults, it's difficult to balance the useful musical instinct to play at the correct tempo with the need to practice slowly. Without learning to control the musical instinct that leads you to rush through your practicing, you will find yourself wasting tons of time and playing the same measures over and over and over again without getting any better. Here are a couple of tips for practicing slowly. If you don't play piano, you might be thinking, what do you mean? Just slow down. But pianists will understand that playing slowly can actually be very difficult. We've all started a section at that perfect slow practice tempo, only to end up twice that speed by the end of the page. So tip number one is to use the metronome. Now, I'll call myself out here. I hate using the metronome, but it is the only 100% effective way to ensure that we do not speed up when we're playing. If you're not sure where to set the metronome for a slow practice tempo, a good benchmark is half the goal tempo. Yes, that is how slow you should be practicing. Now, perhaps your metronome falls victim to a tragic accident and is thus unavailable for your practice session. In that case, look for the smallest note value used commonly throughout your piece and feel that as the beat. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say I'm practicing Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. My tendency would be to feel the quarter note as the beat, so where I would feel the pulse of the music or where I might naturally want to clap along. But if I was just learning this piece, I would want to look for the smallest note value used regularly, in this case, the 16th note, and feel that as the pulse, like this. Now these are just guidelines, and the real benchmark is to practice so slowly that you can play it perfectly. Not a note, not a finger out of place. This might sound crazy, and even I am guilty of not always following this rule. But if you can try to follow this rule as often as possible, you will see your progress absolutely skyrocket. The mental game I like to play with my students is to pretend that you're on a game show, where if you can play a particular piece or section with 100% accurate favorite notes and fingers, but at any tempo you want, you win $1 million. Really ask yourself, if you were on this probably doomed to fail game show, how slow would you go? And that is the tempo that you should be aiming for in your practice. Now, a slightly different angle on this same mistake is that adult students are more likely to prioritize rhythmic steadiness over note accuracy when practicing. Let me give you another demonstration using Maple Leaf Rag. Let's say that I'm working on this section and this chord has been giving me trouble. I've played it wrong a few times, maybe I'm not totally clear on what the notes are, and I'm just not confident that I'll be able to get it right when it matters. 9 times out of 10, this is how I will hear my adult students play that type of passage. Their priority is to just keep the rhythm steady and try to kind of blow past that messy chord. Now, there is a place in your practice for prioritizing steady rhythm over everything else. But in the initial phases of learning a piece, I would never recommend prioritizing that over getting the notes 100% right. In an actual performance, that might be a little bit different. And if you're playing in an ensemble of some kind, this does not apply. But when you are practicing in those early phases, when we are still working on learning the actual notes, getting the notes right the first time should be your #1 priority. This is because you are building muscle memory every single time you play a note. Even if you know it was wrong and go back and correct it, that initial wrong note is now a part of your muscle memory. If you've ever had that experience of your fingers just not obeying you and jumping to the wrong notes even when you know they are wrong, this is why that happens. Because your brain did not delete the 1 or 2 or 5 times you've played the notes wrong, just because you knew it was wrong or went back and played it correctly after. In fact, we now just have a confused muscle memory with multiple options of what to play in that particular place. And while we might intellectually know which option is correct, although I would argue if you're having issues with a particular chord or measure, there's a good chance you aren't as mentally clear on it as you think you are. Physically, our muscle memory has no idea which option is right. So how do we fix this? We have to prioritize correct notes over steadiness and continuity. Once the notes are correct, we can then heavily prioritize our rhythm and steadiness. A quick caveat, you should be able to play a majority of your piece with correct notes at a very slow but steady tempo to start with. If you can't do that for a majority of the piece, it is too hard. What I'm talking about here is for specific trouble spots, really tough chords or big leaps, basically the most difficult measures in the piece. You should not be playing a piece if you can't play a majority of it at a very slow but steady tempo fairly early on in your practicing. But for those devilish chords and really tricky passages, here is what I would recommend. Start by carefully identifying exactly where your problem spots are. A great way to do this is to record yourself on video, so you can pinpoint exactly which places you are struggling with. Ideally 2 to 3 times, and what you're looking for is the places that you struggle with or get incorrect more than once. Flukes happen, finger fumbles happen, but if you're making the same mistake both times that you recorded the piece, that's a very good sign it's a section that you need to go back to and spend some careful time fixing. Then we are going to follow a 3-step process. First, take the chord or group of notes. If it's a long passage, I would break it down into groups of maybe 6 to 8 notes or fewer, and say the pitch names out loud from bottom to top or beginning to end. If you struggle to do this, that's a pretty big clue about why you're having issues. Then play the chord or passage very slowly with 100% accuracy, double checking your fingering. Do this a few times. Then back up 1 to 2 measures and play the lead up to your problem spot. And then take an intentional pause where you mentally or out loud articulate exactly what you are about to play. And only play once you are 100% clear and confident about what comes next. If the first time takes 30 seconds, so be it. Repeat step 3 many times, gradually decreasing the length of those pauses. And be absolutely ruthless about holding yourself to that 100% accuracy until you are able to eliminate the pause entirely and play the section steadily. Now you might be thinking, well, great. If my piece has 200 measures, it's gonna take me about 300 years to learn a single song. Not true. And in fact, this process will actually save save you time. Firstly, you do not have to do this with every single measure of your piece, only the tricky ones or the places you find yourself prone to making mistakes. 2, this saves you the time of unlearning and relearning places where you've developed the habit of making the same mistake over and over again. 3, when you aim for 100% accuracy, mental clarity, and confidence in your practice, you'll notice that your success in one repetition or one day or even a week of practice are going to carry over much more powerfully than less correct, less confident practice. Let me explain. If you're practicing the normal way and you play a passage correctly once, what's the likelihood that you'll do it correctly the next time, or the next day, or the next week? It's kind of a gamble, right? I tell my students all the time, doing it correctly once can just be good luck. So there's a non-zero chance that your next repetition of that same chord or section won't go as well. Or when you come back to it the next day or a few days later, you'll kind of feel like you're starting all over. However, when we hold ourselves to that 100% correct, clear, confident practice, your likelihood of success on the next repetition goes up astronomically. And your likelihood that when you come back to the passage a day or two later, you'll feel like your progress has held much steadier. In my over 15 years of teaching, I've seen this shift in practice approaches, especially with my adult students, turn roller coaster progress, where you feel like week to week you're taking 2 steps forward here, 2 steps back there, into a steady upward trajectory. Notice, I'm not promising overnight transformations or unrealistic results, just an opportunity to hop off the yo-yo and start making the most of your precious practice time. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments below, and I'd love to hear how it goes if you give this practice technique a try. As always, thanks for watching and happy practicing. That they're familiar with? Okay, the culprit in question. For most children, the musical impulse to recreate the exact tempo they're hearing in their head isn't very strong yet.